Did you know you can add multiple background images to a section? Most students know that they can actually add one image as a background, and when you do, it's going to repeat that image across and creating what we call as a pattern. So in this example here, as you can see in my body section, I have this image that I have is called grass, and what it's going to do is it's going to tile it across horizontal, and once it goes across, it's going to repeat itself down to the next section and go across again. So it's going to continue to fill it up. What I'm saying here is that you can actually add multiple backgrounds images to an area, and most people don't know how that will come in play. So that's what I want to take a look at. I'm going to take it and use it in our header section here where I have hole in one. I'm going to add some extra additional images to make it a little more creative, to make it a little more fresh, for that. Right now it's just kind of plain. I got text going on, have a little shadow, got our logo. That's common. So let's add a little creativity to it, and that's where multiple backgrounds come in play. The first thing you want to make sure you do is you kind of plan out how you want the images to be laid out and in what order, because what's going to happen is it's going to create what we call a stacking order. So you have to have that in back of your mind. You got to kind of plan it out itself. Now there's a good, nice little website out there with CSS3.info that this website here kind of goes in and shows you what you can do with those multiple backgrounds. And in this regards, this website it goes in, talks about it, and what they've done is they put in a couple images. They have the sheep graphic, which is something separate. Maybe you create an Illustrator, then you have the grass behind it, and those are two separate images. So they've actually added those multiple background images to that area. So you really got to plan out is what do you want on top, what do you want behind it, and all to make that work. Now what I'm going to do is in my header section, I'm going to create and place in the header section, I want at the bottom to have some grass to come along at the bottom. So what does that image I have in here look like? Well, it just simply I have a grass.png because I want to keep some things transparent, because I want to see part of the green background coming in from the header. And let me open this in Photoshop real quick. This is the original graphic, and as you can see here, the checkerboard means it's transparent. So when I save as a PNG, this will actually be transparent. And then here the grass, just a grass image, a little piece of kind of like clip art. This actually I got for free, a free little stock photo that I can actually utilize. The one of the things you have to plan out here is I want to take a look at the image size real quick. And when you look at this, the width is 1024 and the height's 413. And I want to put this in my header section. So I'm going to go back here, and I want to notice, well, I don't matter too much with the width. The width is 1024. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more over top. It'll go if we don't. Excuse me, as I just mumble my words there. The width there is at 960. So even if the image is 1024, that's going to be fine. But the issue is the height. The height of that original image is like 400 pixels. It would not fit in the header section. So you would actually have to go into Photoshop to resize it. So what I've done is I went in and I cropped this image. So you notice how I took a lot of the transparency. And now if I look at the image size here, the height is set to be 100, and I have the width at 589. Now because I know what background images do, they repeat. So what will happen is once it goes in and gets the first image added, it will add the second image to fill out that section. So you do have to plan this out. So you have to know where you're adding this, and of course you have to look and see if the height matches, and you got to watch out for that. Those are main issues to look for. So in this regards, let me go back here. So I already have this in here. I'm going to take this background image, I'm going to add it into my code for my header. Now if I save, I'm going to save this the way it is. I'm going to come in here and I do a refresh. Now see what's happening here? It's going in, it's adding the grass going across, and once it gets to the edge, it starts a new image down below, so it keeps tiling. I don't want that. I want the only one row of grass going across, and I want it at the bottom of the header section. So now what I want to do is I'm going to have to add a background hyphen repeat. Okay, I'm going to use repeat X, and when I do that, let's take a look at this. It's only going to repeat it once, horizontal. You can do repeat Y, and that's going to go vertical down. Now I want to move this down to the bottom. I can use background hyphen position, and I'm just going to tell it to be bottom left. That's where I want to start. So I'm going to go in, I want to start in the bottom left right by the logo. So I reload, see how it fits nicely at the bottom, and it's going to go all the way across. Now it's time to add that second image, because right now what we have in the background of the header is just the one image. Just the one image. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to have another image appear behind the grass, and it's going to be a picture of like a mole looking over the grass itself. So it's going to be behind it on that. And again, the image of the mole is just simply a transparent PNG. So all the way around there will be transparency, so you can actually see the green come through in the background of the header. So to create those multiple backgrounds, what you have to do is you have to modify your existing style for background image. So what you're going to do is you're going to add a comma, and you're going to type in the URL for the second image. Now you can have, you don't have to, you can have more than two. You have, the key is to separate with a comma, and the order is important here. The first image listed will always, as you're looking at this, and you'll see this. Let me go in and show you the order real quick. When I put in this code, I'm just going to modify the existing one. I'm just going to paste this back over. Oops, hold on a second. There we go. Again, putting the comma in. Let me save this real quick. I'm going to reload here. And as you can see here, you can see the mole is behind the grass and it's peeking through. Now I only want to see the one mole. I want it only to be on the right hand side. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just make some modifications to my styles. And in this case, as I mentioned here, the order becomes important. So the grass, the first image, is always going to be on top, and then the mole is appearing behind the grass. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the background repeat, and I'm going to add a separate style for the second image. You have to keep the same order as the placement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on and say no repeat. So I only want to see the image once. And again, the key here is you're separating it by a comma. So let me come back in. I'm going to reload. Where is it? It's over here on the left hand side. Now I want to move it up, and I want it to be over here on the right. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use background position, and the first image is the bottom left is controlling the grass, and center right is going to control the mole. Now notice I'm using center right, not bottom right. Why? Because I want the mole to be up a little bit so you can see more of its eyes. So I want it to be in the center. How do I know to use center? Because when I created the grass image, it's pretty much it's almost a half the height of the header on that part. And so I have it already planned out when I'm placing it in. Now, if you don't have it, you would have to experiment because maybe your image is a little bit smaller. Maybe you don't use words. Maybe you actually have to use pixels to move it up and move it down. In that, you don't have to go in and use keywords for that part. You can actually use percentages, and you can also use pixels to move things in the positioning. Now I'm going to reload here, and over here on the right hand side I have this graphic behind the grass. It's in the middle so I can see more of its face, and it just adds a little extra to your design. That's all it's doing, is adding a little extra to your design on that. Now granted, I wouldn't want this mole appearing you know um, all over the place in the header, because again I have my logo, have my title, so I'm just trying to go in and give a little addition to it to make it visually appealing and say, hey, oh, what's this? And that makes the viewer stop and say, okay, what's going on here? Cool stuff on that part. Now granted, you can actually use animate.cc or animate.cc to make some animations to add to your design as well. So if you're interested in creating some animations, that's something to take a look at uh, with um, with some other tutorials on that part.